Right here.
Very good evening. We at Read Exhibitions takes another initiative to connect with industry leaders one-on-one to understand their thoughts and how their suggestions can help us navigate its implications on the business and our assets. Today we have with us Mr. Vikram Idnani, who's the Senior VP and Head of IT Reliance Retail. With great amount of experience, Vikram is a business-oriented technology leader, passionate about retail and passionate about customer experience and agility in supply chain. So we welcome you, Mr. Vikram Adlani.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for being here. So, Vikram, what kind of problems did the pandemic cause for the customer and for the retailer, as per your view?
A lot of people were used to shopping physically in stores and all of that stuff. But with the pandemic, there's been a huge push to go online, right? Because people just simply could not move out, shops shut down. So somebody who was used to going to a store had to suddenly now shift onto an online medium. So I think apart from even being able to now get accustomed to shopping online, there were several other issues I'd say which customers faced. As a customer, basically, I had limited availability of stock, so I could not buy exactly what I want. A lot of times, the number of pieces that I ordered weren't met simply because all of the retailers were struggling on stock. I had to, in many cases, accept brands which I did not want for essentials. So I think that really hit a customer really hard, if you ask me. I think customers have really had to struggle through the pandemic. And then there's the retailer side, of course, where retailers had to struggle further down the chain, where they had to now deal with suppliers who were struggling with cash flow issues, and hence they could not provide adequate stock. So retailers are now trying to, uh, you know, get enough stock to be able to fulfill our customers' need, and customers are starting to get obviously very anxious about this kind of stuff, not being able to get what they want. So I think there was pretty much anxiety both on the retailer side and on the customer side in being able to provide the right kind of products. I'd say another thing that's probably happened with retailers is that a lot of retailers who were even doing online were not used to this degree of a last mile of last mile delivery. So it was a sudden scale up, I would say, of last mile fulfillment where they had to do. And I would say a lot of them probably didn't have a smooth experience at the last mile. They weren't using technology adequately. People were not trained in how to deal with customers because it was a scale up that they needed to do. So I'd say that they struggled on the last mile. Correspondingly, customers struggle with dealing with the last mile delivery person who came to their house. So I'd say overall, customers have really had to struggle it out with product as well as the service side of it.
Sure. And, given consumer adoption of technology, there's talk of a lot of new tech coming into a play now.
Yeah.
How do you see retailers engaging with consumers going forward?
Um, so I would say that now with the pandemic learnings out of the pandemic, naturally once we move forward, there's going to be a lot of touchless experience required, right? For grocery stores, that may be okay. But if you look at something like fashion and lifestyle, or if you look at, say, consumer durables, uh, these are more higher touch categories. And hence, these guys are going to have to now be able to provide a non-touch experience to a customer. So for if I have to buy a t-shirt of a certain size, I'm now going to have to be able to sell that to the customer, right? So I think this pandemic has really been a catalyst for adoption of technology for retailers as well. And not only just adoption of technology, but I'm seeing a lot of them now talk about how do I deliver the right experience even with the use of tech. And a simple example is that we used augmented reality on the fashion and lifestyle side, for example, use augmented reality to place a t-shirt on a person. Uh, and that's been around for a while, right? The try-on kind of stuff. But retailers are now saying that, hey, just the try-on is not going to be adequate. How do I push this technology to be able to make customers actually make a decision on fit with this same tech? So I think it's going to really push technology to go beyond what it's today on fashion lifestyle, moving from just augmented reality to fit-based kind of systems, measurements, all of that. So I'd say computer vision, those kinds of tech will play a big role going forward. Similarly, on the digital and consumer goods, it's going to be another similar kind of an experience where you use AR a lot more within your house or within your whatever kitchens, etc. So I think from a customer front end point of view, there's a lot of going to be a lot of push on augmented reality, and of course, everything's going to be pretty much now omni-channel based fulfillment and omni-channel offering. If a retailer has not got an omni-channel offering, then they are not going to be able to succeed, I would say, in this scenario. So really, that's the thing. I'd say maybe on the supply chain front, which is on the warehouse and transportation, um, technology is more capex intensive, so it's quite expensive to have a non-touch warehouse picking technology like automation. So maybe a lot of small retailers might might start talking to 3PLs who have the economies of scale and can actually do the automation and do non-touch based fulfillment, you know. So I think it's on the supply chain side, it's going to be more about how do you do the non-touch based picking and fulfillment. So I'd say that these are some of the things that will come up.
Sure, absolutely. You know, these are going to be
Yeah.
a good help.
And actually, Asha, just one more thing. You know, as I think about it, if you look at e-commerce last mile providers, basically, how do you pick or deliver a product to a customer in a non-touch manner at their house, right? So during the pandemic, we had a situation where the delivery boy comes, he leaves it at the gate. If you know you've experienced that during the pandemic, they leave your package at the gate and then you get a phone call and you go down and you pick it up yourself, right? So essentially what is he doing? He's leaving it there, giving you a call, and then you go and take it. So I think that this is going to more evolve towards automated technologies, and you will have probably IoT starting to come in over here with you know, product delivery boxes, so to say. Maybe so housing societies and buildings might need to keep those kinds of boxes available for packages to be received or to be dropped off or to be picked up rather. So I think that's going to start being pushed, you know. And another thing which I've seen even in this area, if you've been kind of reading up, is the DGCA, for example, has given a go-ahead to companies like Swiggy and Zomato to actually test out drones. So I think there's this sudden push towards technology, and both on the supply chain, on the storefront, a massive push. Everyone's focusing on that, if you ask me.
Yes, absolutely. And we will also see a change in retail supply chains and fulfillment mechanisms.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And to adapt these changes in customer engagement, selling, supply chain, what should retailers do from a technology standpoint to get themselves up for success?
Yeah, so I was saying earlier that, you know, let's say the big retailers have more cash to dip into, and hence they've been able to kind of bear the buffer the hit due to this pandemic. But there are a lot of small retailers, mid and small size, who've been so badly impacted. And going forward, they're going to have to really adapt, right? So, you know, what do they do is a big question mark for them. And how do they go about it? Not so much what do they do. I think everyone knows that. It is how do they go about it. So I really say that, you know, step one there's a little bit of a change of mindset on the retail side. Rather than look at, let's say, point solutions for a specific thing, uh, for a specific online experience that they want to provide, be it on a website or something, I would say they've got to start thinking end-to-end journeys. And an example of that would be that today maybe a small retailer said, hey, I need a website and I'm online, and I'm all good. But I think they got to think right from the start that how does a customer come onto my site? Okay. How does the purchase actually happen? How do I make sure the payment gateway is a robust one? So I tie into a good payment gateway provider and then integrate with the last mile provider. So how do I ensure that my products actually deliver to the customer in the hands of the customer, and being able to actually track that and be sure that it happened in the time frame. So I'd say step one for them is think the end-to-end journey for the customer. Okay, so that's a mindset change that they'll have to do. Once they've thought through that, they will have to then, I would say, all your data. If you're doing that, then you're online and offline. Now, what's important is your data has to be, a single source of truth. You have to be looking at the same stock for an online channel as well as an offline channel. So, are you looking at the same white T-shirt could be available online as well as offline? So you got to be looking at the same white T-shirt. Otherwise, you'll have inefficiency in your stock kind of allocations and stuff, and you would have to then do markdowns and lose money there. So I'd say that the next step would be have a single source of truth of data. Make sure that everything's electronic. So which means as you are delivering to a customer, capture that information at that source. So it's about capturing data at source and make sure from a systems point of view, there is no, you're kind of integrating all your systems so that you don't have people dependencies in between. Somebody marking a status as delivered and somebody marking a status as on hold, because the people who deal with this kind of fulfillment in stores, etc., are all fairly, less educated, maybe not very kind of not studied a lot, and hence in some cases discipline issues. So they might make mistakes of those kinds of things. So I'd say integrated systems to make sure that it's end to end and you can see the whole journey. So for them, it's about single thinking end to end journey, single source of truth, and then making sure the people are skilled and trained to do the right stuff. So it's quite a change for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone is looking for a safety. So this is most important for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the workplace. How employees coped up with it?
So employees, very good question. Because I have interacted with employees across the entire so to say value chain for retail. Okay, so since I deal with fashion and lifestyle as well as grocery as well as a consumer goods side, I would say that if I start from the planning and merchandising side of things, planning and design maybe, I'd say those teams are very high touch and high teamwork based teams. They do work with a lot of interaction with each other, and probably those have been some of the big sufferers in this kind of a lockdown sort of situation. And if they have to continue to work remotely, I think that's going to be a challenge for them, because they are essentially teams that have to work together on design. And so they've had to get on to, team kind of tools to be able to interact. So that's going to be a big change for them. If I go further down on the procurement side, they also have been struggled pretty hard, because they're now dealing with vendors. Their normal day job is negotiating with vendors, right? With suppliers, and then being able to procure the right stock. Negotiating with suppliers, which could have been a face-to-face interaction, is now going to be an electronic interaction. So what capabilities do they have to negotiate? Ability to negotiate is going to be in question, I would say, because it's a lot easier to talk to people face to face across a table and get them to kind of strike a deal. But now you're sitting on a tool, a meeting tool, and you're going to have to do the same level of negotiation. So that's, I would say that they've probably also struggled, and the suppliers have, because of having their cash flow issues, availability of stock, all of that stuff. So they've obviously wanted some leeway in negotiation. So the buying teams have struggled too pretty bad. Probably some of the guys who got uh, got away easily out of this are maybe the marketing teams, because digital marketing anyway has been on the agenda. So I'd say that they got a big push to just maybe shift all their investments into digital marketing. So I think that's probably, marketing probably had it a little easier. And of course, the tech teams have been able to work out of home. But tech teams have been more maybe struggling due to infrastructure, possibly. Just having the right kind of tools, having the right kind of connectivity. And if that's in place, then tech teams are also fully enabled. So probably the buying, design, planning teams really had the rough end of this stick, I'd say.
Yes, absolutely. Sure. So as we all are working from home now from past 3 months, so having experienced this for an extended period of time, what effect has this had on you in terms of workplace productivity and the workplace in general?
So, Ashna, I've had a lot of time to think through this. I've pretty much always worked 9 to 5 in offices, and of course traveling a lot to various stores and warehouses. But the general workplace has been a 9 to 5, 9 to 6, whatever kind of a workplace, right? Working at home has just reinforced to me the need to break walls. Okay, so one of the things that I'm in my head that's just been playing, there's this devil in my head which just says break all the walls once you get back to office. So the whole concept of cabins, cubicles, I'd say I'm just going to break that. I would just want to break those walls, and I think people are a lot more comfortable in an environment where they choose where they want to be, and in what form they want to work together. So if it's meeting with teams, sitting across a sofa and having a little bit of a discussion, creating different landscaping kind of rooms where people can have different types of meetings. I think those are much more stimulating, much more energizing than a structured office with cubicles and cabins. So I'd say that that's been the big learning. Of course, I read enough and I know enough of people from the Googles and Yahoos of the world and the Facebooks and all of that. And those offices are like that, right? They are landscaped. People get to work in whatever environment they choose to be on a certain day. You don't have a desk assigned to you. You just pick where you want to be and you kind of go together. So I'd say that workplaces really need to be redesigned. In India and in many many retailers or many companies, I would say. So yeah, in my place, I'm going to definitely push for that.
Yes, absolutely. Because, earlier when the lockdown had started, so many people were very uncomfortable working from home, but slowly, gradually, yeah, they adopted this and then got used to. So thank you, Vikram, so much for your time and for your insightful thoughts. I really appreciate it. These discussions are going to help industry to overcome their day-to-day challenges. So let's stay connected. We'll come back soon with more such interesting sessions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll just leave everyone with, you guys can connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, or wherever. I'm just Vikram Idnani everywhere. Okay, that's my handle everywhere. So you guys can just connect. Anyone wants to connect with me, most happy to have those discussions.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much. And
thanks, Ashna. Thank you. Yeah, bye.
Bye.